All right, Matt, we're live. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Welcome to this episode of Vestibular Talks.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
I appreciate that you're taking the time to do this because I believe we're going to make a big difference helping lots of people that are going through the same situation as us.
No trouble at all. I'm really happy to help. Want to help as many people as possible like you do. So
Great.
happy to
Thanks,
help.
Matt. Matt, you mind telling us a little bit about your story, about yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name's Matt, obviously. I'm from Sheffield in the UK. So Sheffield's well known for its steel and for the rock band Def Leppard, and that's probably about it.
Okay.
So by day, I'm a data analyst by day, and then in the evening I sometimes pretend to be a rock star, or probably a failed rock star. So that's kind of my very brief summary of me as a person.
Do you party like a rock star too, or what?
Oh, I not so much anymore. I don't mind a beer now and then, but I'm not one for clubs anymore. I'm a little bit past that. I think they'd probably ask me for a pensioner's pass if I turned up at the door there.
Right, Matt. Your vestibular condition. How did it start? When did it start?
So it started in April, the same as you, and I was actually at a football match. So I support Sheffield United, up the Blades. So I was just watching the game normally, and it was all going fine. And then suddenly I remember I couldn't focus on the players on the pitch. It was really strange. And then within seconds, I started to struggle with my breathing and just felt really faint. I didn't know what was happening. I thought, am I having a heart attack? So the paramedics came to see me, and then I got taken to the medical bay and wired up to the ECG, and they checked my vitals and said, oh, they're all okay. We can't see anything wrong. So I thought that was the end of it. And then the following week, I realised that I was getting photophobic at work. So I needed to wear sunglasses because the electric light was seemed to be just disturbing me. Yep. I noticed that I was getting the sensation of derealisation, where I just felt slightly drunk without actually the fun bits of getting drunk. I was just in this weird sort of, it was hard to describe. And then the other thing I noticed that I was sensitive to motion around me. So that's kind of how it all came on really. And then just everything really kind of just spiraled from there, to be honest. So yeah, so it was back in April, just like you.
Yeah, that's strange. That's very, it must be something in the water, in the air, because we got it at the same time.
Yeah, yours are there, yeah. April Fools, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Matt, prior to that, were you usually like a pretty healthy guy, like fairly healthy, fairly active?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the same as you as well. We're really quite similar. So I've been going to the gym 3 times a week. I eat fairly well. I have a bit of a takeaway on the weekend, but who doesn't? But in the week, I try and look after myself. I try and get enough sleep. So yeah, I had a good run of a good couple of years of just things being really quite good and enjoying my time and stuff. And just it was literally like that. Bang! Suddenly, I was a vestibular migraine sufferer.
Yeah. It's like turning a switch. Like somebody flipped a switch on us and just everything changed completely.
Absolutely, yeah, that's it. That's a really good analogy. Yeah, switch was hit, and we were suddenly poorly people.
Matt, you mentioned earlier that you're a data analyst. That's what you do for a living. When this condition hit me, I couldn't watch TV. Even right now, I can watch TV. Like I'm okay a little bit with the computer screen for a little bit. Yeah. But if I try to watch TV, the images that switch so quickly and the movement makes me extremely sick. How was it for you having to work analyzing data, like seeing numbers, looking at the screens, looking at paper? Like, how was that for you?
Well, it was very, very difficult. And unfortunately, they got to a point where I just couldn't do it and I had to go off sick. So I noticed that the screens were, even though I dimmed the brightness, they were still too bright. When you scroll down, that was just disturbing in some way. It was so hard to describe. And just like you, again, I couldn't watch TV either. I noticed that, if I was watching fast motion, so the football on the TV or something like that, it was just really uncomfortable. And that combined with the brightness, it was just a no-no. So I eventually got into just listening to the radio, to be honest. But yeah, work-wise, it was just very difficult. I remember attempting to work from home one day as well, and I even ended up having to put my sunglasses on then, and I just thought, I got to the point where I just couldn't work, to be honest. So I had to go off sick and stop at home.
Yeah, it's these conditions, they are very strange because they bring you down to your lowest point. And something that I noticed, I used to love listening to music and playing music as well. I used to be a musician before in a previous life. And when this hit me, it's almost like my passion for music completely disappeared. I couldn't stand any noise. Like I would try to listen to music, and even if the volume was low, it was almost like somebody had the speakers right in my ears. So how did that affect you being a musician as well, and your love for music and for rock? When this hit you, was it also difficult to listen to music as well?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I personally, I seem to have suffered a little bit less on the hearing side. So I didn't like loud noises, and you know, if you had like you know, you're walking down the street and there was some workmen working, I'd literally walk with my ears covered like that. And at first, I kind of stayed away from music, but then over time, I did start listening to it again and finding it wasn't too much of a problem. Sometimes I'd have a blocked ear or I'd have ringing in my ears, but it wasn't enough to stop me like it obviously it was for you. I think partly where I did stop doing things like my music and not really listening to music apart from the odd depressing song was actually the depression and anxiety element of this condition meant I'd lost interest in doing that, to be honest, because I'd just become very low mooded. So it's kind of more for me, it was more not a physical thing, it was more a mental thing, I think, that pulled me away from the things I love, like music.
Okay. It's very important that you mention right now the anxiety and depression, because these conditions, that they are very linked with anxiety and depression. Whether people were anxious before this or they weren't, there seems to be a very, very strong connection between the two, anxiety and vestibular disorders. Were you usually fairly confident, or were you actually pretty anxious and nervous before this happened?
It's a really, really good question, a really good point. I completely agree. And what I've been told as well, and what I've read about, is it's very linked. The inner ear and the vestibular system are all very linked with your mood. So it's kind of expected, I think, that if you get ill with vestibular disorder, you will have mood problems too. And I would say that I've had odd tinges of anxiety in the past. So I, for example, get very anxious when I'm getting on a plane. But I've been mentally quite robust actually lately. I'd had a really good year last year where I took on a few of my fears. So I started presenting again, you know, in front of public speaking, I guess you call it that. So I wasn't struggling with my mood at all. I was in quite a happy place, and literally, like, sounds like with you, once this came upon me, it just completely dived mood wise. So yeah, I wasn't struggling before. I think it's safe to say, yeah.
Okay. Matt, what you mentioned earlier today about how do you call it again? Derealization is what you call it?
Derealization, yeah.
So here in Canada, the doctors call it dissociation. That was one of the struggles that I found when this first hit me, because I felt like I was constantly in a dreamlike state, almost like I wasn't myself, like almost like I could picture myself out of my body living a life that wasn't mine. It was very, very strange. So how is that for you right now? Were you able to overcome that sensation?
So yeah, I had the same thing, exactly the same as you, and I thought the same things. Like, it almost felt like my spirit had jumped out of my body or something, and or I was watching life through a window that maybe had a bit of rain on it. It was just something. It was through the looking glass. It was something. It's so odd. That's a symptom that's persisted with me, unfortunately. But how I've kind of found a way around it is, and you can check out my videos on it. I got some glasses, and they're called FL41 lenses, and they reduce the visual stimulation. And once you do that, I think it does help with the derealization. You just don't notice it as much. And I think it's probably because you're not getting the same overload in your brain, and your brain maybe just relaxes a bit or just doesn't suffer as much. So then you can kind of function a little bit better. So I used those a lot in the gym, and that meant I could start doing some of my fitness again. And it's also helped me going back to work. It's meant I've been able to concentrate and not feel like I've died and I'm halfway to the afterlife. That's exactly. It's just such a weird sensation. And it's difficult to describe, because you try to explain it to people and they're like, we don't get it. They think that you're high, that you're exactly. My analogy always is it's like when you've been drinking but you're not mega drunk, you've just had a couple of drinks, and it's that kind of stage where you're starting to slip away but not quite fully, and you kind of, with this condition, you're just like that all the time, aren't you? People probably do think you drink, and police officers probably try and breathalyze you, maybe.
So Matt, when when this first started for me, I only had 2 episodes of the actual spinning vertigo. After that, that went away, thank God, because that was really uncomfortable. But right now, I have this constant sensation of unbalance, and then I'm like moving inside from side to side or front to back. How is it for you? Do you feel any loss of balance, or do you feel any dizziness?
Yeah, so again, we are so similar. So I'm like you. I had some odd, quick spells of the room really, really spinning, but then it would stop. I know other people have it a lot worse, but I have had the sensation of being unbalanced a lot, to be honest. And when it was at its worst, I once got up in the night and I felt so unbalanced I fell through 2 doors. It was like a scene from an action film. But I can feel like, particularly actually when I'm in bed, I feel like I'm just being gently rocked, or the bed's been gently rocked, which sounds like exactly what you're describing. So yeah, I experienced those. I had it earlier actually, when I had a bit of a lie down in the afternoon and just listen to a podcast. So yeah, I get that, and yes, it's weird.
When I have the sensation of moving when I'm standing up, I can control it a little bit better because I start walking or distracting myself with movement to decrease the sensation. But when you're laying on bed and you feel like the bed is moving, or you feel like you're falling from your own bed, that I don't like, because it's very, very difficult to fall asleep when you feel that your bed is moving from side to side. That one, I really dislike that sensation.
It's horrible, isn't it? Especially as well if you have just started to nod off and you may be having a dream that you've slipped on some ice or something, and you jump up, don't you? Yeah, it's very disturbing. It's like there's an earth tremor happening, and there isn't.
Yeah. Matt, so your official diagnosis, you actually have a diagnosis, correct? It is vestibular migraines, correct?
That's right, yeah.
How did they get to that conclusion of vestibular migraines? Did they do any testing, any imaging work, or how did they get to it?
Yeah, quite a lot of tests. So originally, the first kind of major testing was by my vestibular physio. So I went to one of those sessions, and she did a number of tests, including one where I had to have my eyes shut, stand with my hands out, and then march on the spot. So I didn't know, I couldn't feel that I was moving, but I was moving. I ended up going across the room and nearly hitting a door. She had to stop me before I knocked myself out. So there was kind of those kind of physical tests, and then I had an MRI scan, which fortunately came back clear, and I also had a hearing test. And then, so the vestibular physio thought I had the virus, the vestibular neuritis, I think it's called. It was only then when I went to see an ear, nose, and throat specialist, talking through the symptoms with her, and I mentioned the photophobia, and she said, well, given the photophobia element, that's drawing me down the route of vestibular migraine. So it was actually the specialist that actually diagnosed the vestibular migraine. And then when I returned to my physio and told her about that, she said, well, I would add to that it's actually chronic given the length of time you've had it. So basically, she explained it like my brain just couldn't calm down because the migraine was constantly firing. So that's why I've had the chronic conditions continually since April. So yeah.
Prior to this happening, do you ever experience migraines when like before this hit you, or just the average regular headache that most people will experience?
Well, I would occasionally get the odd headache, especially when, as you know, when you use computers a lot and that sort of thing. And also if you've had 1 or 2 drinks, you might get a headache in the next morning. But what is really interesting, I don't think I've had time to tell you this yet, but about 7 years ago, I had an episode of this that was very, very brief. It literally lasted a month. And again, at that point in time, I had an MRI scan, but they never actually diagnosed it. It was just put down as some obscure virus, and that was the end of it. And I got better. So that was, I have actually experienced these symptoms before, and it was only about a week or 2 after having them again this year that I suddenly realised, oh, hang on, these are very similar to what I had before. And I started piecing together the puzzle really, and researching, talking to people, and going to see actual vestibular experts. So yeah, so I would say I do have a little bit of a history with it.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because when I also believe I said mine hit me out of nowhere in April. But talking to my doctor, he said, if you actually, like you mentioned, put the pieces together, think about it, think back in time, if you were ever feeling dizzy or if you were feeling any odd sensations. I started thinking, and I said, you know what? Before this actually hit me, I could never watch a 3D movie. I will try to put a 3D glass to watch a movie or watch any of those virtual video games, and I will get dizzy just like that. But I thought that was normal because as soon as I took it off, I will feel normal again. But now that it stayed with me, like with yours, that became chronic. That's when you notice it's more obvious, because you're like, well, this is not going away. This is actually staying with me for such period of time. So it's very important that when people get these conditions, they actually think back and say, okay, was I getting dizzy before? Was I getting any signs that my body was maybe letting me know something was off?
I mean, that's an excellent point, because the reason as well why the ENT arrived at the vestibular migraine is because I did mention that past experience. And so you're absolutely right. And I think as well, actually thinking about it, and it's only when you, like you say, when you get it badly that you start thinking back. And I do remember on very odd occasions, I would, for example, just very, very slightly feel that sort of derealization symptom when I was fine. And it would just be literally a second and a couple of seconds, and that's it. So you start, like you start putting the pieces together, don't you? Like watching an episode of Lost or something and trying to piece it all together. So yeah, that's a really good point you make there.
Matt, I watch all your videos in your YouTube channel, which are very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
You mentioned in one of them that you got a medicine that wasn't really helping you. So what has helped you? If that one didn't help, what has helped you?
So medicine-wise, the biggest help to me has been medicine to control my mood and stop the depression and anxiety side. Because once you do that, you can start mitigating some of the other symptoms that are more, the more vestibular symptoms. So that's been the most helpful, almost life-saving med, I would say. So if people are out there suffering with the mood, go and talk to your doctor and talk about these kind of medications. In terms of the actual treating the vestibular symptoms, I've been on the propranolol, we call it in the UK, and they're sometimes called beta blockers. And that's kind of has helped too with the anxiety side, but I've not really noticed it helping with the vestibular stuff. And then I'm due to try, we call it amitriptyline here. I'm not sure what it might be called in Canada and the States, but same thing, that's great. So we're singing off the same hymn sheet. So I'm due to try that, and I start that from tonight. Actually, I picked up the prescription yesterday. So I would say sertraline, whether it's still called that in the States, I don't know, or some kind of drug that will help you with your mood, I think is really, really, really important. So do go and talk to your doctor about that if you're struggling and watching this video now.
All right, thanks for sharing that. Matt, you also mentioned that you're starting to work out again at the gym. You're starting to exercise. Have you noticed that that's also helping you, like just being active, just getting back into your regular routine has helped you as well?
Absolutely, 100%. So being able to work, do a bit of physical work in the gym, trying to go and meet your friends again, getting back to work, it's kind of reclaiming your life. It's kind of like telling this illness that actually you've dragged me down for long enough. I'm gonna, even if it hurts me, I'm gonna try. And when you do that, and then actually, and in one of my videos I talk about setting little goals for yourself to try and achieve. When you achieve them, it kind of does make you think, actually, I can cope with this illness. And I mean, I always live in the hope that you will get better, and I'm convinced everybody will. But in that meantime, it shows you that you can mitigate it, and it really, really improves your mood too. Absolutely. It's reclaiming your life back and getting back to normal, which is what we all want to do, isn't it?
Yes.
So, and as you were, you'll be again, which is now my catchphrase in the videos. So I'm a strong believer.
Love it. Matt, in your videos, you are very grateful to Amy Shaw.
Yes.
And I am as well, because thanks to her experience, people like you and me that start developing these weird symptoms are able to kind of like get a hold of it fairly quickly. While other people like herself had to go a couple of years trying to figure it out what was happening, because they didn't have anybody else that was explaining to them what these conditions were or what they bring into your life. So I believe that creating this type of awareness is extremely important, because not only for ourselves, because we document our own stories, but because other people that might be developing the same symptoms can learn from us and be like, oh, those symptoms reflect what I'm feeling as well. So they can maybe go to the doctor and say, hey, do I have a vestibular condition, or should I try these medicines, or should I try these treatments? So I believe this is extremely helpful. And you have connected with people over the world, from, like, for example, with Marley from Australia, and that's how we all share this type of information. Have you met anybody also in England with similar conditions, or not yet?
Yeah. I mean, I echo your point. Amy has been brilliant, really. Her video has helped us both. She's been like a pioneer, really, hasn't she, on this condition and sharing and raising awareness. So I would absolutely echo. And her suffering, unfortunately, but she's used it, channeled it positively to help others. So yeah, I've been connected with Marley and yourself. So I've also made friends with a girl who's based in London. Okay. So Amy's based in London, but then there's another girl who's based in London. She's really nice. I probably shouldn't name her. I've not asked whether I can name her on the internet, but so she sent me a really nice message saying, you know, if you need help, if you need to discuss symptoms, here you go. I'm a sufferer, and she's had it for about 2 years, I think. So I've been able to talk to her about it. I've not met anybody in my area as such, but I did put some of this stuff on my personal Facebook page for my friends, and quite a few of my friends came forward who I didn't know had any kind of conditions, saying, well, actually, I suffer from vertigo, or I suffer from this and that, and you coming out and saying it publicly has really helped me. Can we have a chat? So I have met a couple of people I know who actually are at my workplace. Actually, one of them is. So it's put me in touch with them and been able to help them a little bit and give them a bit of a steer. So, but in terms of meeting people, I've not actually come face to face with any diagnosed vestibular migraine sufferers. Just communication. It's the wonders of technology, isn't it? When we're talking from the other side of the world. So, and that's probably how it will be, I'd imagine. And that's fine with me. You can help people electronically, can't you?
Absolutely. And I believe the more we create awareness, the more people are going to come forward. Because even among doctors, vestibular conditions are not very well known among doctors. They usually write it off as a panic attacks, anxiety, or they think that maybe you're overwhelmed with the stress in your life. It's because they are not really familiar with vestibular symptoms unless you go to see a specialist like a neurologist, an ENT, something like that. So I believe that many people that might have been misdiagnosed with anxiety or panic attacks may be actually having vestibular migraines or some sort of vestibular condition. So as we create awareness, they might come forward and say, hey, I actually have that's what I'm feeling. So it's not just anxiety.
You're absolutely bang on. I think you made a really good point as well just before. Actually, when you're made aware of these conditions, you can actually present it to your doctor and say, hey, I've got these symptoms. Is it this? And that can then lead them to start thinking, or referring you somewhere where you will get a diagnosis. I completely agree. I think that's a really good point and a really useful about these videos. It also helps you not feeling alone. Helps you feel there are other sufferers out there. I remember when I first read about these symptoms on a website, it was kind of like an epiphany moment, like the penny dropped. It's like, this is describing me. This must be, I'm not going to diagnose myself, and we all know the dangers of Dr. Google, don't we? And as I said, you can read that and your head's going to fall off next week. It does help you, and it does kind of help you clarify what's going on, and because they're really worrying symptoms, aren't they? And it can give you it can put your mind at rest a little bit, certainly. Couldn't agree more with you on that one.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. This has had a huge impact in my professional life, social life, even my family life with my son and my fiance. How is it for you? How has this impacted your social, professional, and personal life? And are you kind of like regaining some of that back?
Well, I'm sorry to hear it's affected your life in that way, but I do understand, and that's part and parcel, isn't it? It did for a while. So I sort of disappeared from seeing my friends, because I actually went back to stay with my mum and dad for a while, who were very, very good with me and looked after me. So yes, I stopped seeing my friends. I missed 3 concerts in a row. I missed Metallica, Noel Gallagher, and Muse all in a row. I stopped going to the football, obviously, because this is where this first happened. So yeah, it became not me anymore. My life, and because of the anxiety and depression as well, it really felt like my life has gone as I knew it. But it's not been, although it's been chronic and it's been since April, it's not been long enough for me to completely lose relationships and that kind of thing, which is fortunate. And then as I've then made an attempt to try and get back to real life and battle, I've been able to reclaim those things. I've been able to see my friends again. I'm not quite the same. I'm a little slower. I can't.
Okay.
It's going to take time.
Yes.
So I'm building things up. I managed to actually go to the cinema for the first time in ages yesterday. So you do it gradually, and people, life does move on, but it doesn't move on that quickly without you, and you can rejoin it. You can rejoin the rat race, I suppose. So I would get that out as a message of hope to all sufferers.
That is a huge milestone. You actually went to the movies then? You were able to sit in the theater, watch the movie?
Yeah.
Really? Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, it was. I was really pleased with myself. My breathing. So I've not really touched on the breathing element, but I struggled with my breathing with vestibular migraine. But anyway, that was still a bit funny there. But I was able. I took my FL41 glasses, thinking I probably will need those, but I'll give it a little go and see how I get on. And I was able to watch the whole film without any form of shades at all. And the last time I went to the cinema was terrible because I had to put some dark sunglasses on. I felt really, really ill, and it was just awful. So it was quite what would you call it? A milestone for me. So yeah, but it just shows you that you can start doing things again. That slowly over time. And I'm touching wood here because I don't want to, jinx anything. But your symptoms can start to ease back that bit, just so that you can get back to doing things you enjoy.
Yeah, well, that gives me hope because I love movies, and when this hit me, it hit me at the worst possible time. The Avengers movie came out, John Wick came out, Game of Thrones ended, and I couldn't watch any of that. So you're giving me hope. You're giving me hope that I can watch them.
You will watch them again. Trust me. And that the film I mentioned where everything was terrible and I had to wear the black. That was Avengers.
So I'm definitely looking forward to it. And Bad Boys 3 is coming out soon, so I'm definitely gonna watch that one.
Well, to be honest, if you haven't got them already, get some FL41s and lenses, because I generally think if you get some of those, even if you can't just look at the cinema screen with your naked eye, you will be able to with the FL41 lenses. I'm pretty sure of that. So get some, and you'll be able to see Bad Boys 3.
Thanks, Matt. Matt, what does the future hold for you now? What are your future plans? What are you focusing on?
I'd say I'm focusing on just sort of being more positive about hopefully getting fully better. So I'm focusing on that. I'm also really, in the last month, really started to focus on helping others more and getting some videos out there and trying to sort of give the message that and as you were, you'll be again is my main message. I generally think that will happen to all sufferers at some point. Nothing stays the same forever, just as we won't stay like we are now forever, and we will get to a point where we feel better, and that's kind of what I'm focusing on. Just focusing on just returning to normal life, but also acknowledging that I've got this condition and adapting to it and doing all the right things. Keeping healthy, taking the vitamins, taking the medication, complying with the doctors, doing the vestibular physio, which we've touched on a little bit, but just doing all those things, and just sort of to feel like hopefully the future is going to be positive, and this stupid illness will ease back and I will feel better.
I agree with you. It's such a strange illness. Matt, anything else that you'd like to say to the people that are watching your video, and maybe invite them to your YouTube channel so they can also learn from your personal experience? Yeah,
please do have a look on there. It may be useful, it may be not, but we all want to share information. I just like to say one thing. I want to say what a great job you're doing. I've watched some of your videos and some of your interviews, and I think it's really, really noble and a really good thing you're doing, raising awareness of this and across borders as well, across countries. So, and my kind of final message would be, as I usually do, and I've said it a few times, as you were, you'll be again. People out there, you might be just starting with these symptoms and in that really, really terrible hole. Your life's disappearing, but have hope. Don't give up. Talk to your doctors, and you will get to a point where you will be, if not fully better, where you can cope and mitigate these symptoms and reclaim your life. So have hope. That'd be my final message for anybody watching.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. And that you have a new friend here in Canada now. So when you get better and you're able to travel, you're welcome to come to Canada.
That'll be lovely. And if you have a new friend here in Sheffield, so if you want to come to the home of Def Leppard and come to some of the pubs with me, you'll be very, very welcome.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it. All right, Matt. Talk soon.
Cheers. Talk soon. Bye now.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.